Hello, welcome to Steve McDonald's Arts and Crafts. Now, it's unusual for me to start a video with me on camera, so I'm sorry about that. But what I'm going to do today is I'm going to go through several tips, tricks, and also important information that's not only going to save you money, save you time, but also prevent you getting failures with your resin as well. And these are really, really important things that all people that are using resin actually should take notice of, because what we must never forget is that resin was originally created as an industrial chemical, and it's an industrial chemical that the art and crafts community have adopted, but it's still an industrial chemical and it should be treated with the respect to get the best out of it that you possibly can. I will link everything that I use in the description today below so that you can easily find it, and this is the sort of video that really you can just come back to at any time. I will put chapters in it as well, so if you know one bit you can just look down below in the bar and skip to the next bit and refresh your memory. I'm doing this because I really want to help people who are experiencing problems with their resin or having failures or it's costing them a lot of money. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button so you don't miss out on any of my future videos and resin experiments and projects, and ring my little bell, so that you get notifications when my videos come out. I ought to get a little bell so I could dingle it. So these are just a few of the things that I'm going to be using today to show you the damage that can be done with torches, the importance of measuring. But really, before I go on about anything else, I always want to talk about PPE. What is really important is that you must wear gloves. You will, if you're not careful, get contact dermatitis from resin because it is a chemical. Now, if I'm not careful, I get it, and this is just mild, and I try and be very careful. I don't want my eyes swelling up, which has happened lots of times. So what I use is, I always use gloves. I always use a full face mask now with 3 micron vapor cartridges in it to prevent me from getting any on my face. I always wear long sleeves now, and whenever I'm using resin, I always tuck the sleeves into my gloves and then put an elastic band on them. That does help my wrists. I also use DermaShield on my skin as well before I'm going to use any resin or be in any resin, because I am very sensitive to resin. But I use it every day, and 99.9% of the time I'm okay. But I do have a whole video on PPE, and I will link that at the end of this video because it's really, really important and it's a must watch. And oddly enough, it's one of my videos that has the least amount of views, and it amazes me that people don't really take much notice of it. The other thing is, all resins are different, regardless of what you might think. You might have been using one brand, then you move over to another one. They are all slightly different. Some resins, certainly in America, may have mercury in them. It's illegal to have that in the UK and Europe. Others may have other chemicals in, and they will all have different mixing times, mixing volumes, or methods of measuring them out. And it's really important to make sure that you adhere to what the recommendations are for each of those resins. The same with the different types of resins. There's polyurethane resin, there's polyester resin, there's epoxy resin. You know, there's lots of different things out there. So make sure, don't take for granted that what you've been using before is the same and it hasn't changed its recipe. And if it tells you to mix using volume, then don't use weight. But if it tells you to use weight, then always weigh it as well before you mix it. And some say you can do both, but if you do both, often they're different measurements. So for instance, the resin I use is a 1-to-1 resin by volume, so that's the same amount in each jug, but by weight it's 100% of A to 90% of B, which is the hardener. And if you put more than that in, you're going to find it hardens too quickly. So here is an example of what I mean. Now, a lot of people mix up by volume, and they're used to mixing up by volume. And this resin that I use, which is a brilliant resin, I absolutely love it. You can do 1-to-1 by volume. So if you had 50 ml of part A, you would use 50 ml of part B. But if you do it by weight, then it's 100 parts A and 90 parts B So you need to adjust it. And if you don't adjust it, you'll find that it'll cure up a lot quicker, get really hot in the pot, and it won't do what you want it to do. You won't get as much pot time. So I always, whatever resin I'm using, I always make sure I know fully what the measurements are, and then in permanent ink I write it in big words and numbers on the actual pots themselves, so I easily can identify, if I'm busy and I'm getting things sorted out, what that is and what I need to do, rather than having to look at the small writing or look it up on the website. And then you've got something like the ultimate cast, which tells you it's only by weight. So it's 2 to 1. So it would be 2 times part A to 1 times part B. If you do it any different, it's not going to work. So it's going to cause problems with the curing. If you don't use enough, it's probably not going to cure up. And if you use too much, it's going to cure up too quickly when you're using it in deeper molds. So always follow the instructions, and always be exact as you possibly can with the amount that you're doing. You know, a little bit too much hardener will cause problems, and then you're not going to waste money by having resin that's caused a sticky mess, or you're not going to waste money by pouring a load of stuff and ruining everything that it's done because it's not cured, or it's cured too quickly. One of the important things is when you buy measuring jugs or whatever you use to measure in, ensure that they are accurate. Now the things like OXO and that, they are very accurate, but the plastic ones that you can buy 50 of or 10 of from China, I'm telling you, the marks are awful. I did a test on some of mine a while back and I threw them out. Well, I didn't throw them out. I kept them and used them just for other things, but I never use them for measuring because they are so far out, the marks on them. So check all your measurements on your pots that they're accurate. Now, when I'm mixing resin, I always start with the part A because I know that that's generally what I need slightly more of. And I do tend, when I'm first pouring it, to get carried away, as I do here, and I over pour that. But it's not going to matter because there's no part B in there, so I can just take that out and until I get to the amount that I want. I wipe the scales in case there's any spill on that because that's going to affect your measurements. And as you can see here, I used just a plastic spoon, and now I've got it to 100 grams, which is exactly where I want it. Now with the part B, I pour this a lot slower and I sneaky up onto it like a little ninja until I get to exactly 90 grams. Because remember, this is 100 grams part A, 90 grams part B, not a 1-to-1. And then when I mix, I use a wooden stick often. Now this has been used in resin a lot, so it's got a coating of resin on it, this wooden stick, and as a result, it's nice and sealed. It's not going to release any bubbles or cause any problems. Now some people say you should mix in a figure of 8, other people say that you should mix round and round. It's really whatever you want to do. I do a combination of both, but what's really important, if you don't want too many bubbles, is to mix slowly. You don't need to beat it as if you're making an omelette. So make sure you scrape the sides, the bottom and the stick several times during mixing, and mix for the amount of time, if not sometimes a little bit longer depending on how cool or warm your resin is, until it's fully mixed. Now by scraping the sides and the bottom, what you'll find is you will get rid of all the stuck bits of part A and part B. So what I've done now is I've decanted some of this resin out into 2 smaller pots and left a larger amount in the larger pot because I want to show you how quickly resin can heat up to the point where you can no longer use it and you think, oh, that cured up really quickly in the pot. Well, if you've got a lot of resin in a pot, the exothermic reaction which causes it to cure will kick off a lot quicker and get really hot really quickly. So that's why I'm using an electronic thermometer. So at 15 minutes, there's not a real great difference in the two. So you've got 82.9 degrees Fahrenheit for the larger one here, which is 27.9 degrees centigrade. And actually, they are about the same as the smaller pots are. At 20 minutes, it's gone up quite a bit. It's at 84.2 degrees Fahrenheit and 30.3 degrees centigrade. And as you can see here, it's just reading them, and they're about the same. So you do get a nice working time, but make sure you look at the pot time of what you're using. But at 25 minutes, within that 5 minutes, it's gone up to 107 degrees, and actually it's gone up to 46 degrees. So 120 degrees Fahrenheit and 49.3 degrees centigrade. And the smaller one is 92.6 degrees Fahrenheit and 33.8 degrees centigrade. So there's starting to become quite a difference in the temperatures. They're still quite fluidy and you could use them, but the more you mix them now at this stage, the quicker that exothermic reaction is going to happen as well, and it will set up even more. So this is just sitting there doing nothing. So we're coming up to the 35-minute mark, and this is where it goes through the roof. It's at 163.9 degrees Fahrenheit, the large one, and the other one is at 96.4 degrees Fahrenheit. You know, there is a massive difference here, and even now within that minute, this has actually gone up another 9 degrees Fahrenheit, and it is very hot to the touch. You know, it is getting really hot. At 40 minutes, it goes beyond what my digital thermometer will measure. And the smaller ones are still really quite low. They're 99.8 and, you know, 37.9 degrees centigrade, which is a lot lower, considering about half the temperature of what they are. And if you look at this now, it is starting to really thicken up and gel up. Now, if I had more resin in there, this would have happened probably in half the amount of time I've taken. I just want to say a quick thank you to all my members who, without, I wouldn't be able to keep this channel going. Oh, look at that gloopy mess. It's like the blob. It's awful. And the other one is still quite liquidy, which is useful. Now, if you'd like to buy me a coffee just to say thank you for all my experiments and help pay for, well, me chucking all this resin away and get your name onto the coffee board, then the link for that is in the description below. This is now completely unusable. And I have to say, if I'd have used probably half the amount of resin again in this, it would have probably gone through this whole process in about 15-20 minutes. But I didn't want to waste that much resin. Now, thinking about when you're adding colour, so this is tip number 6. Never add more than about 7%, and a lot of them you don't even need to do that. Certainly with things like glitter and mica powder, which are dry colours, they're not really going to affect the way that your resin cures. So you can add quite a bit of those. But you don't really need to add a lot of mica powder, you just need to add a little bit. A lot of people add loads to it, and it actually doesn't make any difference. Alcohol inks, I don't like alcohol inks in resin. I love what they look like, and alcohol, I think they look beautiful. But unfortunately, alcohol will fade really quickly, and it's flammable as well, so be careful of that. So now what I'm going to show you is the difference between using a long neck lighter and a torch, so a chef's torch that a lot of people use on moulds and have problems. Now, silicone moulds are not really used or competent enough or capable enough to take the types of heat that a torch will give. So as you can see here, I filled up 2 moulds with the same batch of resin, which is a fresh batch of resin that I've mixed up. And what I'm going to do is pop the bubbles using the torch. And as you can see now, when I use the torch, it pops those bubbles lovely. You can see them all popping. They're going. You know, they've gone. And I haven't really gone over this for too long. And now I'm going to use the lighter. And with the lighter, I'm going to go over it quite a bit longer, so you can see that I'm not, you know, dodging these results. And I'm just popping those bubbles. But it does pop them just as effectively and easily. And actually, what you'll find is it will do far less damage, which you'll see when I show you these when they've cured up in a few seconds. So going over that a lot longer than I did with the torch. Now another tip, tip 8, is when you've done your mixing, clean your jug straight away. Scrape out everything that you can scrape out of that so it's as clean as possible. Now this resin normally I would put into a mould or something. I wouldn't waste it, but I'm going to waste it for the purpose of this experiment or example. I hate wasting resin. So I've scraped that out as much as I possibly can, and now I'm going in with an alcohol-free baby wipe, because you want to avoid alcohol on your silicone as much as possible, because it will dry your silicone out and reduce the life of your moulds. Now I just go in with my 2 fingers, give it a really good squodge and wodge around there, to ensure that I've got everything out that I can possibly get out and that it's nice and clean. What are you thinking? Check out my new channel. I'll put the link to that in the description below. It's me doing lots of different crafting and having lots of fun upcycling and recycling and doing different crafts. So now this is nearly there. I'm just wiping all the edges of this, and actually it hasn't taken many seconds to do, and what it's done is it's brought it nice and clean with no bits in there that will contaminate my next mix. This one I'm going to pop the stick in and leave it to cure up, and I'll show you what that looks like soon. Well, these are both cured. We've got the one that I used with a torch, and we've got the one that I used with a long neck lighter. And we've also got the two pots that I wanted to show you, because this is the one I cleaned out straight away that just took seconds to do. Perfectly clean, ready to use again. And this is the one where we let the resin cure up inside it. And what you can do is, if you leave the stick in, then you lose the stick. I always like to wipe my sticks and use them many, many times. It does give you a leverage to pull it out, but what you do get is you get little bits like this left in. Now, this has actually come out really well, but what you would then have to do is you'd have to make sure you get all these little bits out, and it's a lot more difficult and more time consuming to do once you've let the resin cure up. Now, you can roll them in your hands, you can stick sticky tape in there, and you can wash them out, but it does take a lot longer to do, and you are likely to get little bits left in, where this way you do it in seconds and it's much quicker. And sometimes, like, I mean, I've left this one, I don't know if you can see, it's almost impossible to get all the little bits out. And also the cured resin, if you leave it in your silicone jugs for too long, there's bits in there still, and I've given that a good clean. If you leave it to cure up for too long in your jug, see, look, a bit in there, then it can degrade the silicone a little bit quicker than it would if you just clean it out straight away. So there's a good time saver. So this is the one that I really want to show you. So there aren't any bubbles on the top of this one, and there are just a couple on there, but that's because I didn't go back over it with my long neck lighter 5 minutes later. And there are a few bubbles on the top of this because of the same reason. So this one, which was just a long neck lighter, comes out perfect. Mould's ready to use again, just give it a little bit of a wipe over. No damage done to the mould, and the coasters come out lovely with no bits attached to it. This one, as you can see, because I was quite heavy with the torch, has stuck to, even more than I thought it would, has stuck to the silicone. And I hate wasting moulds, the same as I hate wasting resin. And I've wasted a lot in this video, letting it cure up without making anything, and also getting it like this. But it's not a waste if it helps everybody else to not waste it. Now, I'm having real difficulty getting this out because it is well and truly stuck to the mould, look. And this is what torches do to moulds. They're not designed for the 1200 degrees that a torch burns at. You know, I know people say, oh, but you can put them in the oven, and yes, well, you can. But an oven doesn't get to the same temperature as a torch. So, when you do this, and I've heard a lot of people say, I'll put it in the freezer, it will come out. It won't. It's adhered to this. Soak it in water, it will come out. No, it won't. It's adhered to this. So, you know, this is now a ruined mould. Oh, I've ripped it now. And whatever I do, that resin is stuck firmly to this silicone mould. The mould's ruined, but it's worth it to show you what, because I talk about this so often in my videos. You know, use torch on wood coasters or anything that's not silicone, then you're fine. But even if I go around and pick this off now, it's still going to leave a little bit on there. It's still extra work, and the mould is damaged beyond repair. So there's only one place for that now. And that's in the bin. But it's worth it to show you. I hope you found this to be really, really useful. And they're just things, you know, that we don't automatically know. We have to learn them, or we have to discover them for ourselves. But it's handy if I've been able to save you not only time, money, and to avoid failures. Because that would have been really frustrating if that had been a set of special coasters that you'd made for people or made for yourself and then not able to do anything with them. Not only have you wasted the resin, you've wasted the mould, but you've wasted your time and maybe someone's valuable photograph or something else like that, or your own valuable photographs or pictures. Be sure to check out the video that I'm linking at the end, which is my PPE video all about safety and making sure that you're safe when using resin. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ring my notification bell so you don't miss out on any of my future videos, and I do release videos 3 times a week. And if you'd like to buy me a coffee or become a member, then the links are in the description below. I'm currently saving for a 3D printer, which should be great fun to use with my resin work and other crafts. Take care, enjoy your resin. Please let me know in the comments if you found this useful. Bye.